Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, Star Wars nerds? Happy May the 4th, and welcome to a very special episode of the Multiverse Report. Today, we are recapping our favorite Star Wars Force users. From Mos Eisley Cantina, to Echo Base, to Jabba's Palace, to Gungan City, to the Geonosian Arena, to the Jedi Temple, to Maz's Castle, to Canto Bight Casino, to the wreckage of Death Star 2. My name is Mike Gibson. With me as always, Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
I don't have a good segue. All I know is I like Star Wars.
You don't need one.
No.
You don't need a good segue.
No.
It's Star Wars Day.
It is.
Happy May the 4th, my friend. May the Force be with you.
Indeed. Same to you. As a lapsed Catholic, I always want to say, and also with you, and it just is really awkward.
I always say, and also with you. That's my classic response. And to be honest, I'm shocked that you did not say, and also to you, back to me.
I'm like, I consciously fight it for some weird reason because it brings me back to shaking hands with people in a pew.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's not just the two of us, as is, I guess this year makes it a tradition.
Right.
Because last year was our first official special ranking episode for May the 4th. And so this year, we're bringing him back. Please welcome to the show, friend of the pod, Matt Beseda.
Hi, guys. So awesome to be here. Second year in a row. I absolutely love doing this. It's one of my favorite May the 4th pastimes, and so excited to be doing it again.
One of your favorite pastimes that you've only done one other time.
Well, yes, but it's one of my favorite May the 4th traditions.
Yes, that you've only done one other time. But mine
hey,
too.
traditions have to start somewhere. Traditions have to start
right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And also with you, have you heard the John Mulaney bit where they changed it to also with your spirit? It's very funny. Check it out.
Oh no, I've heard churches that do that, but yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, they held it for 2,000 years and changed it just to spite John.
Sounds like a Mulaney bit.
Yeah. Does he talk about Star Wars at all in that bit?
He does not.
Then I don't care about it because we're only talking about Star Wars here tonight.
Yeah.
So we weren't. It took us a little bit to decide what we were going to rank. Obviously, the first year we did it. Obviously, do the movies, right?
Right. Simple, clean.
And we talked about maybe ranking the TV shows, maybe ranking lightsaber battles came up, and we thought that characters would be a strong one to do. Then we thought, there's a lot of characters, so why don't we drill down a little bit and get a little more specific? And we landed on Force users. Now we're using the term Force users instead of, Jedi or Sith, because deep Star Wars nerds know not everyone that uses the Force identifies as a Jedi or a Sith. There are different Force religions, or, you can use the Force and not have to be a Jedi, all that kind of stuff.
Which actually will come into play later when we have our write-ins from the populace, because as has become tradition, we put this out to the people and put a poll out as to who your favorite light and or dark side Force user were. Got a bunch of responses, and we're going to go over them as well within our I was going to say an hour, but there's no way it's going to be an hour within our show.
You never know. Because I feel like debating, there's not much. I mean, not that we debated the movies last year, but, characters may mean a lot to a certain person and may mean very little to another person. So, like, I may reference a character that neither of you guys really have much to say about or dig into at all, So who knows how long we'll go. Last year was 2 hours, I believe. We talked for a little over 2 hours about those films. Took us 2 hours to get through 11 movies.
That tracks.
So we're only doing 10. One less thing we're counting down this year. We're doing top 5 and top 5. So maybe that'll shave off a good 5 minutes.
And like you said last year, Mike, this is just our opinions. This isn't a heated discussion. No one's going to be calling anyone a Mary Sue. It's very much friends talking about something that we love very much.
I mean, depending on the outcome of this, I may have to drive down to your apartment, Matt, and have words. But I think we'll be okay.
That is a great point, Matt, and you're right. I did specify that last year, and I should again, that these are just our personal favorite favorite Force user characters, as last year was just our favorite, our personal ranking of the films, our opinions. We're not here to yell at each other. We're not here to talk about how George Lucas is a terrible writer, or that Kathleen Kennedy can't run Lucasfilm, or that women shouldn't be in Star Wars or whatever. Like, one, I don't believe any of those things. Two, if you came looking for people that were gonna yell and scream about how Star Wars is failing and in the toilet, then you listen to the wrong thing, and you should just turn this off right now. If you're here because you love Star Wars and you want to hear three friends that love each other talking about movies and characters that they also love, then you're in the right place, and welcome. So thanks for coming. Before we dive in, I asked this question last year. I'm going to ask it again for you guys. Was there? We're going to do. We're going to count down dark side Force users first. Then we're going to go to light side Force users. 5 and 5. When you guys were making your list, were there any specific criteria that you kept in, that you were going by? Were you like, how were you just going on your gut instinct or your feelings, or was it just like, was it, did you get all like mathy about it? Like, how did you calculate these 5? Was there any criteria specific?
I think, one of the things I thought about was, how they use the Force. So one of my dark side users doesn't have a lot of film. It doesn't have a lot of doesn't use the Force a lot. He's more of a technician, if you will, with a lightsaber, but he's still a Force user. So I consider him a Force user, but he's not very high on my list because
you put Matt the radar technician on there.
Yes, yes, I did. With TK421. It's what their abilities, how they affect the people around them, and the story that goes on.
Sure.
Mine, I went more story beats, like what connected, what characters connected with me. Which the more I thought about it, my dark side flopped about 17 times, and my top 3 on my light side were I was just juggling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. Wow. I was literally like, I changed it probably about 7 or 8 times in the last couple of days.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, because and I can see that, because I approached this more character too. I kind of said, okay, 1, does this character use the Force?
Yes.
If yes, then
flowchart.
Then where are they? How much do I love them as a character?
Yeah.
Because, and like kind of what you said, Matt, I look at, I think it was one of the hosts of Star Wars Minute said this once, and I completely agree, where he said that he looks at being able to use the Force as like being able to play an instrument or something, like I play guitar differently than, either you guys would play guitar, or differently than Jimi Hendrix plays guitar. Jimi Hendrix plays differently than John Lennon, plays differently than Jimmy Page, plays differently than Jack White, plays differently than Billy Joe Armstrong. Or, it's like, just because you can do it doesn't mean you're going to do it the exact same way. And that's kind of how I look at the Force. And so, like, just because someone doesn't use it all the time doesn't mean that they don't belong on this list. Or so maybe someone's not as powerful with it doesn't mean they don't belong on this list necessarily, because it's our favorite Force user characters, not who's more powerful, not who's the best Jedi of all time or whatever. Like, I don't necessarily think that, my number 1 light side Force user, say, for example, do I think they're the greatest Force user of all time? Not necessarily, but they're just my favorite. So kind of separating those two things a little bit.
Figuring Dan is not the only person to whale jizz in the galaxy.
I also think there's a comparison to be made there
No explanation of that at all for people who don't know. Amazing. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No. It's going back to guitar players. Someone can play the guitar and not consider themselves a musician, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that goes back to, the two religions of Jedi and Sith, and having more than that.
Right. Yeah. Well, because for example, Broom Kid at the end of Last Jedi, he's not a Jedi. He's just a kid that can use the Force.
Right.
And we don't know what happened to him. So
in Legends, you had the Ankh monks, and you have the Night Sisters, and you have all these other groups,
Night Sisters is a good example. Yeah.
That weren't Jedi or Sith, and they were still, and again, the Night Sisters will come into play later. But there's a lot. There's a spectrum out there. Now, for this list, it was mildly hilarious. I went down to Funky Town Comics and Vinyl, our wonderful sponsors, and asked both Jesse and Jeff to fill out this. And Jesse filled it out within 3 seconds, knew exactly where he was going, exactly what he wanted out of it.
Yep.
Jeff was literally looked at me, he's like, really? These questions? He's like, I got to think about that. He had to actually step away and think about it. And it's I've noticed a lot of people are of that mindset of you either know, or it's oh God, who is my favorite?
Right.
So
all right,
we've gone 10 plus minutes without even talking about a single Force user.
Well, perfect amount of time, I think, to serve as an intro.
Okay.
For this, you guys ready to dive in?
Sure. Do we have any honorable mentions out there?
Ooh, I don't know. Well, I feel like maybe we should
do
save honorable mentions until we get through, because then that'll honorable mentions will color what our lists will be.
Good thinking.
I have an honorable mention for Light Side, but we're not starting with Light Side. So
okay.
Anyway.
Or honorable mentions, apparently. So
yeah, we decided that we are going to do the ranking similarly to how we did last year, where we're not going to talk about we're not going to have a discussion about a character until either all three of us have mentioned that character, or say if Matt mentions a character that Steve and I do not have on our list, then we can have a general discussion about that character. So we're going to wait for that, just so we don't repeat conversations and things like that. So, okay. So Dark Side Force users. Number 5, Matt, as the guest of this podcast, would you like to go first?
Yes. Number 5, I picked someone who is a very troubled soul that fought with the dark side for a while, and that is Kylo Ren.
Oh,
all right,
good choice.
Actually, my number 5 as well.
Ah, great choice.
Do you have him higher, Mike?
We will not be talking about Kylo Ren just now.
Okay.
However, my number 5. Now I feel like I don't know. My number 5 is the Emperor.
Okay. He is not
huge, crazy, bug-eyed look from Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, are
because he's so low?
Are we talking about him now or later? Do you have him higher on your list, Matt?
Palpatine?
Big Papa Palpatine.
I have him higher.
Okay. So it's not discussion time.
For the record, I have him at number 10 on my list.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So Steve went above and beyond. Matt and I made top 5 lists, as was the assignment. Steve made top 15 lists.
Well, my brain couldn't. I started going Legends, and I was like, shit, I got to put him on there somewhere. And then it just kept going, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Okay.
So none of our number fives.
Okay, now I can't wait till we can talk about him because yeah. So
yeah, that would be great. Can I ask a question about someone that I don't know if he is technically a Force user or not?
Yeah, sure.
General Grievous.
He's not a Force user to my knowledge.
That's what I thought. He, from what I understand, he's trained in the Jedi arts.
Well, I believe from what I remember, I believe Count Dooku / Darth Tyrannus trained him to wield a lightsaber, but I don't believe he uses the Force.
No.
And that's what I thought. I had been thinking about that the last couple of days.
Yeah.
While I should have been doing other things, but anyway.
I'm always thinking about Star Wars while I should be doing other things.
Yeah.
You know what else you should be doing, Matt? Telling us your number 4.
What's it?
That's
number
right.
4. Number 4 was an interesting one for me. I think he is. They told his story, and then they got a chance to really tell his story in the later years. And he's a character I enjoy very much, and that is Darth Maul.
Yeah, we're not talking about him yet.
Not talking about him yet. No discussion as of yet.
But I will agree with your sentiment.
Yeah.
Were it not for animation, he would be nowhere near this list for me.
Right.
My number 4 was one of the aforementioned Night Sisters. Trained in the dark side and an apprentice to a Sith Lord, but not a Sith. Asajj Ventress.
Interesting. So you count her as you count her as a dark side user.
There can only be 2.
Right, because she was a dark side user. We see her leave the Sith and go on to do other things.
True, I guess. And especially if you watch recent animation, there is even more neutrality, but my brain goes back to her as a dark side user.
Right. My brain does the same thing because my 4 is also Asajj Ventress.
Matt, we talking about her now or later?
We could talk about her now because she is not on my list.
Okay.
All right.
So I did bring visual props too.
Ooh, look at that.
So that is
some glare going there.
A lot of glare.
Great.
But a John Tyler Christopher Asajj Ventress cover.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve. Pretty much what you things that you said I agree with. I think she, like, I thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, she's a dark side user when we meet her in Clone Wars or whatever. Both versions of Clone Wars, by the way. Which is the first time I saw her was in the
original Tartakovsky.
I thought she was amazing.
Oh, 100%.
And then she gets so fleshed out in the Clone Wars series and beyond. But for those of you that have seen that show, you know that she her character evolves past just being an apprentice to Dooku and becomes a bounty hunter and kind of goes into kind of explore her own life. And I just think she has such a rich backstory, and people clown on early seasons of the Clone Wars. Again, watch them again; they're not as bad as you remembered the first time. It's all about Star Wars. It's all about expectations. That includes the Clone Wars series, I believe. When people say, "Oh, these seasons are too long," and it's taking their stories jumping all over the place, but you really get to dig into these characters and spend a lot of time with them. And so, like, watching Asajj Ventress, her journey from dark side apprentice through bounty hunter, like, it's such an incredible kind of thing to watch happen. And that's the same with other, like, Ahsoka or other characters too, because you get to spend so much time with them. And not every episode of that show is great or a masterpiece or whatever, but you really do have, like, a long ride and a long journey, and you witness the character's journey over time, which is really special. So I personally, when I was thinking of it, I was like, yeah, I don't care that she doesn't stay a Sith apprentice. I don't think that disqualifies her from having her be on my list of dark side Force users, because when she is a Sith apprentice and she's wielding those double red blades, so goddamn cool and scary and threatening and smart and cunning and such a powerful adversary for Obi-Wan and the Jedi.
I was going to say the banter between her and Obi-Wan is just it's amazing.
It is great.
Like in general, she embodies a lot of what I love about the Clone Wars and the character growth you can show through a show like that, and something that is long lasting. Very similar to what we saw with the 3 seasons of the Bad Batch, which she does show up again in with a killer haircut. But I guess my reasoning for keeping her on the dark was, even when she went bounty hunter, it's not like she was still in that gray Jedi at best situation. You know what I mean? Like it's not like she was ever a light side user.
Yeah, I would say her appearance in the Bad Batch is the closest that she's ever been to like being a good guy, really, in any way. She goes from being straight up villain to like someone who's just in it for themselves. And we see that all the time in Star Wars. Like some of my favorite characters are characters that are just like, I'm on whatever side that is going to help me survive. Like Mandalorian or whatever, Han Solo even. And so she becomes kind of that character, which again, she's not a straight up hero. She doesn't become a Jedi. You know, she doesn't. She's in it for herself.
It's not like some Force users that have literally just gone from Jedi to Sith to Jedi to Sith to, you know what I mean? Like someone like a Darth Revan from the game you guys haven't played. Matt, you played Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just Mike who hasn't caught up on this. So we're waiting for that reboot still.
I know. Praying for it every day. Matt, I know you are not as I don't know if you've watched as many Clone Wars episodes as Steve and I have, but have you experienced this character? Obviously not enough to get her on your list, but like, do you have any thoughts about
not enough to put her on my list. One thing I will say about the Clone Wars, and I was just thinking, which I know isn't the topic we're talking about, but it's Star Wars and we've got 2 hours. It is the Clone Wars series did so much for this saga and the overall arc of so many characters and the Star Wars story. I mean, from introducing characters to showing a different type of character in Anakin Skywalker than we saw on the big screen. To it's really fascinating what this show did for the series. I definitely agree. I like the banter between her and Obi-Wan. I liked that she left the Sith, but wasn't she was on her own path, she reminds me very much of Ahsoka, in the opposite way.
Like a dark mirror of her, kind of. I see that. For sure.
That's
a good point.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like she's like, because I first saw her in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series, which I loved and is still available on Disney Plus. And I think she's in only like 1 episode of that or 2 episodes. Like, she's not in many episodes. And I mean, spoiler alert, Anakin kills her in the original series, which I loved. And I was kind of sad that didn't happen in the rebooted Clone Wars or the newer Clone Wars series.
But at the same time, Filoni realized that, like, how cool of a character she was, and was like, we're not going to kill her this time.
What else can we get out of this character? Yeah, for sure. But also originally, because she's only in like 1 or 2 episodes of that series, and then she dies. It was kind of a classic Star Wars thing. It was just like, oh, I think I love this character because they look cool, and that's it. Like, I feel like Star Wars is a series where you can get a lot of mileage out of just things looking cool, and you can form deep emotional connections to designs, character designs, or
see
ship designs.
Fett
Just like,
become
I
a
just love
Boba.
that. I don't know anything about it, but I just love it. Like all the people that loved Boba Fett for a million years and demanded more Boba Fett content, despite him being on screen for 10 seconds. I was like, he just looks cool. He just looks cool.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we
Yeah.
care about, and that's fine. That's an acceptable reason to love something when it comes to Star Wars, I think.
So
All
yeah,
right.
we're at
Raj
the
Ventress.
she was your 4 as well, Mike, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're moving on to
Numero
Matt,
tres.
your number 3.
My number 3 is I don't know if he'll even be on your guys' list, to be honest with you, but I think he is a extremely important figure in the prequel era, and I think his actions had a ripple effect. But I'm gonna go with Dark Tyrannus, aka Count Dooku.
Okay.
Count Dooku at number 3. All right. Good choice, Matt.
He is not on my list, though he is down at 8 in the honorable mentions.
He is not on my list either. So let's talk about Count Dooku. Matt, I mean, you just kind of talked about him a little bit. Do you have anything more to say about him?
Yeah. I think, you know, if you haven't seen Tales of the Jedi, it is so worth watching because I believe it further explains his impact on you know, he was he helped Palpatine invoke this plan.
Yeah.
He was the one
set it in motion.
He set it in motion. He created the Separatists. He you know, this is a guy. This is a dark side user that took Anakin Skywalker's arm. He defeated Anakin and Obi-Wan at the same time. He was able to go toe to toe. Now he also did lose to them as well.
I was gonna say Anakin ultimately won that with the head thing.
Yeah.
One hand versus one head.
Yeah. Heads were gonna roll. But he also went toe to toe with Yoda. And I mean, when you talk about Force users, he is the Padawan of Yoda, and his ability, I think, often goes underappreciated.
I think ultimately, I mean, that line from Yoda to Tyrannus to Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan to Anakin to Ahsoka, is one of the, like, I don't know, that is the preeminent. What's that?
To Sabine, right?
Okay, sure.
Just finishing the line. That's all.
Technicalities here. But yeah, that is one of those. Well, I mean, I guess Kanan technically, and Ezra would be part of that.
Well, why? Who taught Kanan?
Ahsoka ended up providing them training in
I guess
Rebels.
That's true. I guess that's true. I don't.
Somewhere there has to be a cool, almost like family
tree. Yeah.
Yeah. Who trained?
Oh yeah,
who,
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Someone get on that. I would love to.
But
see that.
Yeah.
But we talk about how this animation has impacted things. I mentioned I had Dooku at 8. He would not have been remotely close to my list were it not for Tales of the Jedi. And like that episode just changed things.
Yeah. I feel like Matt, when you said something about how he was underappreciated, under-recognized for his power and his role, I completely agree with that, and I see why, because they try to make him a deeper character in Attack of the Clones, but that movie has a lot of flaws in it.
There's plenty of other issues besides that.
In my opinion, there's plenty of other issues, and they're trying to do a lot in that movie, so they don't really get to dive into him in that film as much. Although he does have a couple of great scenes. I really like the scene where he has Obi-Wan captured. He pretty much tells Obi-Wan exactly what is happening. Obi-Wan just doesn't believe him. And then, the fight where with Yoda and Anakin and Obi-Wan later on is great. But basically in that movie and also in the Clone Wars series, we really don't get to see much more of him than other than just like, he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy because he's the bad guy and he's the villain. And that's it. We don't really get any much depth out of him. There's a couple cool Clone Wars episodes where, we see him do a little bit more, but I agree with both of you. Tales of the Jedi was the first series that really kind of put him in, or shown him in the light that he deserves to be shown in. Like he's doing, but it shows him becoming disillusioned with the Jedi and going on to, become involved with Darth Sidious and start putting these plans in motion, and to the point where he kills Yaddle, another Jedi Master, in order to protect what he's doing. So like those are like shorts. There's like 3 short animation shorts that give him more backstory and more interesting plot lines than a whole movie and 7 seasons of an animated show. So I agree with you that without Tales of the Jedi, he wasn't on my top 5, but he would definitely be in my top 10. But I wouldn't consider him remotely interesting, really, if it wasn't for Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah,
sure.
Because even like the stuff that we know about, he was Yoda's, he used to train under Yoda and he used to be a Jedi. Like I don't even know if they even specify that in Attack of the Clones outright. And
I think they mention it like offhand at the beginning of the fight.
If they do, it's not like a big plot point or anything. No. Like that should have been something that's like deeply expressed to the audience, so the audience is like, "Ooh, this guy's interesting," and they don't mention it or they gloss over it in something that doesn't really have much impact. So therefore, that character doesn't really have much impact in that movie as much as they want him to have. But anyway,
well,
Count Dooku.
I know my number 3 is not going to be on either of your lists, and is almost a technicality.
Great. Okay.
But he is a canon character. It is the originator of the Sith Rule of 2, Darth Bane.
Oh, yep.
So
I know that name, but I don't know much about him at all. And yes, he is not on my list.
Mentioned in Clone Wars, mentioned in a couple of, I believe, Rise of Skywalker, for whatever that's worth.
Is he mentioned in Rise of Skywalker?
I think so.
Oh, interesting. I believe you.
I know he's mentioned at least a couple of times. But
let's
he
all
is
pause
officially
this podcast, go watch Rise of Skywalker, and we'll come back.
You just lost me at that. That is once a year I get to do that. Some year it'll be fine. This is not that year. Yeah. Matt, I'd assume you do not have Darth Bane.
I do not.
Okay. So
let's hear about him, Steve.
Bane, to me, I'm drawing a lot from the EU end of things in that 3 of the best novels that were ever written in the EU were the story of Bane, how he came to be, how he rose in the Sith. He is from the ancient era when it was, there were planets of Sith and like the Sith Wars. After the Jedi Sith War, he effectively nuked all of the Sith, the Jedi and the Sith, and formed this rule of 2 of a master and apprentice. That lasted all the way through until Sidious. And until he died for the second time. But a lot of why I have him as high as I do is just the characterization of him in these novels, and how well established it was of him orchestrating the downfall of the old Sith and the rise of this new order. And it just, it hit with me. So
sure.
No real reason outside of that. but very well written in the EU. Brought in on a technicality because he is officially canon now. Now he did have that showdown with Yoda in the season 6 of the Clone Wars.
Wait, really?
He was the
when
dude...
Yoda's in that weird trippy place.
Yeah, he was the dude in the weird armor.
Okay,
that is Darth
that's
Bane.
Cool.
Yep.
I haven't rewatched that stuff, but I remember that plot line.
Yep.
At least vaguely.
It was like the specter of this dude in the weird armor, and that was him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to him much, but even just kind of what you described shows a huge impact on like the history of the both religions.
Yeah,
both
definitely.
Force religions. So yeah, and seemingly incredibly powerful, and had a long-lasting effect on the Sith in general. So
absolutely
no problem for me. Him being your number 3. My number 3 has been mentioned, I believe, at least once. I'm already losing track. My number 3 dark side Force user is Darth Maul.
We're not talking about him yet.
Not talking about him yet. I didn't think we would be.
Nope.
Still not talking Darth Maul. All right, Matt, we're on to number 2. 2 for dark side Force users. Matt, Beseda, let's hit it.
My number 2 is the centerpiece of Star Wars. In many ways. I don't know how to describe him better than that, but my number 2 is Darth Vader.
Whoa. Wow. Not talking about him yet.
Okay. He is also my number 2.
Oh. Not talking about
who's number 2, the more interesting game we played at camp.
My number 2, someone I'm pretty sure we will be talking about right now, unless I'm wildly overestimating or underestimating Steve's opinion of this character. My number 2 dark side Force user, Kylo Ren.
No, remember I had him at 5.
Oh, you did have him at 5.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. No, I'm losing track. So, okay. So we're talking Kylo Ren.
There you go. So Matt and I both had Kylo at 5.
Yep.
You had him at 2.
My 2.
So we all three of us acknowledge the redness of Kylo. I'm gonna not do that.
Yeah. I mean, you had him higher than the Emperor, Steve. So
yeah, I just don't like Palpatine. I really just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk Palpatine momentarily. I believe. I love Kylo Ren. I know there's people out there that don't. I don't understand
to him.
You came around to him?
After Force Awakens, I thought he was a whiny whatever that I did not want to deal with. And then I thought more about it and saw it a couple of times and was like, yeah, no, I see why he is doing what he's doing.
He's intentionally written that way.
Right.
Like,
and you see that.
It's not that the character's coming off like that way. Like, he's written to be a petulant man-child who is like mad with power. Like, he has tasted power and he doesn't have the maturity to handle it.
Right.
Well,
like, the reason I didn't like him is because I was supposed to not like him.
Yes.
Like, he was written in that way. And it took me at least 2 viewings to realize that. And I'm like, huh. Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. He's sort of the opposite, not the opposite, the same, but also the opposite of Anakin in Attack of the Clones. You know, Anakin's written in a way sort of annoying, sort of a baby.
Hi, have you met Luke?
He gets sure.
I want to go to Tashi Station.
It's all the same bloodline. We're talking.
Right.
So, like,
it's true.
Passed down.
Genetics.
Is the same bloodline. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that characterization, like, I get what you're saying, Matt, where it's not dissimilar to Anakin, but I think this specific characterization is one that we hadn't really seen in Star Wars before. I think it also speaks to things like the dangers of ego and the dangers of toxic masculinity. When those two things combine and spin out of control, I think that he is a character that is, for the most part, written very well to show, that he is in pain, not physical, but like he is struggling on the inside, and not just struggling with his pull to the light side, which they make clear in Force Awakens, but he is just like struggling with the betrayal he feels from Luke, just anger at feeling rejected by his parents, feeling rejected by everything. Like his inner conflict and inner pain and suffering, self-loathing, whatever you want to call it, like I feel like is so well depicted, more so than Anakin even. I think Anakin we see Anakin experience some traumatic experiences, death of his mother, rage, murdering tons of Tusken Raiders, like we see that. But then also then we go to Clone Wars and he's depicted as pretty fine, pretty happy. It's not like he's not like harboring necessarily a dark secret, which is part of my problem of his,
but he
with
does
his characterization and his quick fall to the dark side. He does escalate through the Clone Wars.
Again, it's one of those where, were it not for the Clone Wars,
yes,
I'm gonna go crazy here. Were it not for the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker as a character probably would be nowhere near my light side list anywhere.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Clone Wars, and even then, it doesn't really make sense because we've already seen him straight up massacre a bunch of Tusken Raiders, and
the women and the children.
And the children too.
Well,
we're supposed to think he's an okay guy. Like one Clone Wars is like, oh yeah, no, he's fun, Anakin, and he's great. It's just like, wait, he
went from that to snips, and it's
now
like,
you want me to like him?
Okay.
Yeah, it's strange. It's strange,
but it works.
I feel like
it weirdly worked.
It does work, but I feel like with everything we got from Kylo Ren, we really understand his journey and what he's kind of dealing with and why he is acting like this. At least I do. And I also think Adam Driver is such an incredible actor. And I know Hayden Christensen is a good actor, and he was working with a director that doesn't really know how to work with actors very well when he made those movies. And he's definitely redeemed himself in things like Ahsoka. But Adam Driver can act circles around many other people in the Star Wars franchise, I think. And so him being behind all that great characterization, I think, just makes the character really soar for me personally.
Yeah, you're talking about an Oscar-nominated actor. I think storyline-wise, it's interesting how dangerous it could be training a Jedi, and Yoda says to Luke, Yoda warns Luke about how they're going to try to turn him. They're going to try to turn you. They're going to try to turn you to the dark side. It happens with Kylo Ren. He is turned because he's partially trained, and he's confused, and he's upset, and he
feels betrayed,
I mean,
it's one of the reasons why I think Yoda always Yoda goes back. He is too old. He said with Anakin, he said that with Luke. They have very distinct reasons and criteria for training.
Yeah.
And in both cases, they made an exception. And Anakin, because of his, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, midichlorian count. In Kylo Ren's Ben Solo's case, he was Luke's nephew. Luke is obviously going to train his nephew. In both cases there was a little bit of I don't want to say nepotism, but
it could be
favoritism.
Yeah.
No, I get it, and it's funny because in the EU, actually, Kip Duran, one of Luke's apprentices at the academy, he sets up actually it was at the Masashi Temple on Yavin 4, takes an Imperial super weapon and blows up Kurita, which is where the Stormtrooper Academy is.
Whoa.
And then gets redeemed
North
and
or
becomes a
south?
Jedi Master. So, like,
Wow.
these beats are out there.
Yeah.
It's not nothing new to Star Wars.
Right.
But yeah, the way Ren's storyline plays out, it definitely took what I thought going into after watching Force Awakens was pretty cookie cutter and turned it into, okay, this is more of a development story than I expected. And I really did not want to like Kylo Ren after Force Awakens. I also didn't realize what Adam Driver was capable of after that or before that, because I had only seen him in whenever I caught a random episode of Girls that my wife was watching, and I was like, okay, it's that dude.
Right. See, I don't think I don't think I had seen him in anything before I saw him in Force Awakens, which I think I mean, that happens a lot in Star Wars. I think it benefits me in a lot of ways, but I love it in Star Wars when I don't know an actor before I see them in Star Wars, because then they're just that character. I don't have it's like, oh, it's Tom Hanks playing a Jedi. You know what I mean? So it's like, I remember him from all those Tom Hanks movies. It's like, oh, I believe this guy is Kylo Ren because I've never seen him in anything else. So he's just Kylo Ren. And so I don't have to bring any other expectations of what the actor is capable of or what they're going to do or how they're going to play a character. It's just like, that's just what they are.
Right. Sam Jackson as Mace Windu is like, do we get Julius? Or, I mean, I guess it's also Sam Jackson, so he's going to play Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
So there's that. But
he's also the only one I can think of. Because I'm, I was 16 when Phantom Menace came out, so I wasn't very familiar with Liam Neeson. I had seen Ewan McGregor in an episode of ER.
Yeah.
And I had seen Natalie Portman in my dreams. But sorry, I had to. There weren't many characters. And the same with the sequel trilogy. I hadn't seen Oscar Isaac or Daisy Ridley or John Boyega. Even Dominic, who plays Hux.
Monaghan?
Who's a very good actor.
Is it?
No, Dominic Monaghan is the Mary the Hobbit, who's in and Charlie, Star Wars Minute refers to him as the Not Penny's Boat Hobbit. He's in The Rise of Skywalker. You're thinking of Donald Gleason.
Donald Gleason.
Donald Gleason. Donald Gleason. Jackie's son.
Brendan's son. Which, if you haven't watched,
it's gonna be interesting
Matt, if you haven't watched Banshees of Inisherin, go watch that.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Okay.
Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson do amazing things.
It's gonna be interesting when Jude Law shows up in that skeleton crew and to see if he can rise above the fact that he's Jude Law.
Yeah,
like that.
Very much.
Although I feel like Jude Law has been out of the spotlight for long enough. Like, when's the last time you saw a movie that Jude Law was like featured in?
It was Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That was the only thing with Ahsoka that was Rosario Dawson. I'm a big fan of Rent, and saw her in Rent, and I was expecting this. Anyway,
Ahsoka didn't start singing.
Didn't start singing. She. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. I knew Rosario Dawson from a few things, but also she's got a weird thing on her head and her face is orange and stuff. So like that kind of helps. But also she was playing it. She had the uphill battle of fighting against the animated version of that character and kind of like defining her own version of it. So like that was kind of a double thing. But I think we've digressed enough.
To get back to
enough time. I think it's time we get to our number one dark side Force users.
Which, if my brain is working, I believe all three of us have distinctly different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So Matt, who's your number one dark side force user? I think I know, but use it. Go for it.
Yeah. My number one is the orchestrator, the manipulator, the one who set everything in motion and did his little godfather is Emperor Palpatine.
Sure.
Good old Chief.
Yeah. All right.
Which is very, very interesting because Steve didn't have him on his list.
I had him at 10.
Mike rated him at 5. You had him at 10. 10, 5,
Even though we
1.
made top 5 lists.
Yeah, I had him at 10.
Yeah.
10, 5, and 1. That's a very so I guess we've
Emperor.
should talk about him. Yeah.
Fire away.
Matt, do you have more to say about him? Yeah, you go ahead. He's your number one.
Yeah. I think he is part of the centerpiece of the entire saga. I'm gonna forget.
No, don't forget it.
Skywalker.
Don't forget it. He's in it. Don't forget it.
That's why he's a 10.
Okay.
I'm not going to bullshit you.
I mean, this guy single-handedly, with his powers and his
can't say single-handedly. He had a lot of help. He hired
He did,
a lot
but he
of people.
puppet mastered a lot of it.
You're right. He hired a lot of help, but didn't tell anybody what he was doing. So yeah,
right.
You're half right. Yeah,
I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. And then, it was like the fall of the Roman Empire, but happened like that.
Yeah.
When it happened, Rome took several hundred years, but he pulling the strings on Vader too, and it's just he's a very interesting character. And I recently rewatched Obi-Wan, which I thoroughly enjoy. I love that show. And what I liked about that show was they showed Palpatine in that era. Because you don't see him. You see him in Bad Batch, and then you don't see him physically till Return of the Jedi, which is a pretty long stretch. I think that there's no one that could play him besides Ian McDiarmid. I think he God is so good. Now, episode 9. I'm not gonna blame that on the character Palpatine. I think
he's doing what he's at. Ian McDiarmid is doing what he's asked to do.
Oh yeah,
Ian
McDiarmid was fine.
Yeah, Ian McDiarmid. Yeah. I think Ian McDiarmid is a big reason why he's on my list at all. I think my love for the Emperor comes almost exclusively from Return of the Jedi. And I agree with what you said, Matt, how like he's like the puppet master and all that stuff. Like that is interesting, intriguing stuff, cool, great. Return of the Jedi was the first time I saw the Emperor, because when I was a kid, when I first saw Empire Strikes Back, he was not in it. So I didn't see him until Return of the Jedi, and he's terrifying in that movie.
Like absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, like I was scared of Darth Vader when I was a kid, but in a different way, because Vader's got this like you don't see his face, right? He's like a mystery.
Right.
Where Emperor is just this like decrepit old looking guy, and
he's the crypt keeper
he's
under
not
a hood.
he's not hiding his face. He's like
talks like this.
Yeah, he talks super creepy. Yeah. He moves super creepy. He's like a presence unlike anything I had seen in the first 2 Star Wars movies at that time. So I was like, whoa, what is this? This is like a wizard, like a magic guy, And like, yeah, Jedi are kind of wizards too, but he looks just so radically different and scary. And then when lightning shoots out of his fingers, I'm just like, oh my God, this is horrifying. I was like terrified when I was a little kid. So he's like left this huge impression on me as just like the pinnacle of evil. And Ian McDiarmid, great as that character. He's probably the best actor in the prequel trilogy, I want to say, I think, all across the board, because he's great in all three of those movies, and not everyone else is great in those movies.
Ewan McGregor's probably your only other close to it.
Because like, McGregor's in all three also. Yeah, right. I would say Liam Neeson. He exists.
I mean, Ewan McGregor existed in episode 1.
Yeah, but he just doesn't do anything and doesn't do anything and doesn't do anything until he kills Darth Maul.
Right.
At the end. Yeah. So yeah, I think Ian McDiarmid is maybe the best actor in that trilogy.
Yeah.
However, I feel like my feelings about those movies.
Christopher Lee does bring it as Dooku.
You're right. Yeah. Well, a lot of people do, but I feel that those movies are flawed. My feelings about those movies kind of dampen my love for the Emperor in those movies, I guess, because like I've said this about my personal opinion about the prequels, is that it's a good story that's not told very well. It's a good story told badly, is how I said it before.
And that's proven by Clone Wars.
I agree. I think that the whole like they play off the reveal that he's the Sith Lord in Revenge of the Sith. They kind of play that off as supposed to like a big twist, and it's like, well, he's been played by the same actor for the last 3 movies. Like, is anybody fooled by this?
But I still remember in '99 when the Phantom Menace came out, how many people did not put Senator Palpatine and Emperor Palpatine together?
Yeah.
And I know.
But
I know it worked. I guess it worked on some people, because there's people that love those movies way more than I do. But like, I guess I was old enough to be like, even when I saw Phantom Menace, and they show at the end of Phantom Menace, they're like, who did we kill, the Master or the Apprentice? And there's like this sinister close up on like Palpatine's face. I'm like, oh, he's the bad guy.
It's the same like, guy that was they
the
tell
Emperor. They like tell you at the end of Phantom Menace, and so I'm like, okay, well then I know more than all of the Jedi, and I know more characters that now look stupid because I'm in the audience and I know it's so obvious to me. So like I think like the weaknesses of the prequels of surrounding that character made him a little lower on my list for me personally. But like he did leave such an impression on me in Return of the Jedi that it was like he had to be on the list for sure. And Rise of Skywalker, like again, like I think that's the biggest mistake that movie made, was bringing him back, but it still is fun to watch. It's always fun to watch Ian McDiarmid play the Emperor, like no matter what. So like, even though when I'm watching that movie, I'm like, this is stupid, but it's cool to see him as the Emperor. But not cool enough to make me think it was a good idea, but still like, they're giving this to me, I'm gonna, make lemonade out of lemons.
I mean, that basically dropped him off my list. Like, it probably dropped him from 5 to 10 for me.
The Rise of Skywalker specifically? Yeah.
Because, like, when I was doing it, it wasn't holistic, because if I'd have looked at it of Ian McDiarmid and what he's done and, like, how he portrayed the character, it probably would have been higher. But, like, I just couldn't get over the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, too.
One other...
And this is someone who enjoyed this storyline, Star Wars Dark Empire, which was literally... Palpatine being cloned in the EU.
One thing I want to bring up, he was successfully able to turn the quote-unquote most powerful Jedi ever. The Chosen... Whoa.
What?
What was that? Can anyone else see that?
You're on your Mac, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am on my Mac.
We just saw a bunch of balloons
go,
like weird. Digital balloons go past
that was very weird
out of nowhere.
The most non-Palpatine thing, balloon.
Yay.
All right.
So he turns Anakin Skywalker. But we should keep moving.
So my number one as you can attest by the fact that by process of elimination, if you're listening,
Yep.
Maul.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
Darth
Darth Maul.
Maul.
Because by the end, he was just Maul.
He's just Maul.
Or Old Master, or whatever you'd like to call him. But that character, holy hell. Like, to go from, okay, Ray Park is really cool and doing twirly shit, and he got cut in half, and he fell down a garbage chute.
Yep.
To me being able to put him as number 1 on my favorite dark side list.
Yeah.
Like, that's a journey. And through Clone Wars and Rebels and technically Solo, there was so much growth in this character and so much change. And it's weird to have his arc end like it did, almost made it even better. Like that tragic ending of him in the desert with Obi-Wan.
Matt, have you seen Rebels?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And you're right. It's absolutely tragic, and
it's incredible.
It's a beautifully well done scene. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
But he, like, Maul was everything. He was a leader of the Mandalorians. He was a fallen Sith apprentice. He and his brother tried to take on the Empire. Like, it was just a weird, you almost couldn't write it outside of tying it into all these different threads, and it worked so well.
Yeah.
Like, even as a foil to Inquisitors, and like working with Ezra and Kanan, but like there were arcs in Rebels, there were arcs in Clone Wars where you're just like, I feel bad for this guy. Oh, I love this guy. Oh, he's pure evil. Oh, okay. Like, this character is just everywhere.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it was Dave Filoni who I heard. Excellent. Too. That's a great comic cover. I'm pretty sure it was Dave Filoni that I heard describe Darth Maul as Sisyphus, the Greek tragic character who's sentenced to forever be pushing a rock up a hill only to have it roll back down. Which is a great way to look at that character. I think, like, he's lots of rises and lots of falls. And I agree with what you said initially, Steve, when Matt brought him up, is that if it was not for animation, he would not even come close to being in the top 5, because that's another thing that I felt a lot of people did when Phantom Menace came out. Like, but Darth Maul was all over the marketing. He was huge in the trailer. He was like he was on everything. He was a super cool looking character, looks terrifying.
Got like 12 minutes of screen time and like two lines.
He dies. 2 lines, dies.
Yep.
Insane. What? I think, like, the idea to bring him back is such a wild idea, which on paper, or you first hear it, you're like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And, it kind of doesn't. He's just so mad that he didn't die, basically, is what they say. Like, he was so mad, he plunged himself into the Force, or like used the dark side to like hold himself together.
See my number 3. Darth Bane had a whole thing where he was dying and adhered armor to him, whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, weirder things have happened in Star Wars.
Dark side does some weird stuff.
But it's like we said with Ventress, like, they realized what they could get out of that character instead of killing them off. And I kind of wish that maybe they had done that in the movie, not killed him off, or made it a little more up in the air. But without his story arc in Clone Wars, and for me, Rebels specifically, I think is an incredible arc.
I feel like Clone Wars was good at laying a base for what happened in Rebels. Like, if we didn't see that rise and fall in Clone Wars, it wouldn't have made his interactions with everybody, including the Inquisitors and like ultimately Vader showing up, etc. Wouldn't have made that as much of a payoff.
Yeah.
So I think it was like this weird ass whole package of obscurity to what he became, and it worked so well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Is it my turn for my number one?
Speaking of rises and falls, Mike, go ahead.
Vader, baby. Not reinventing the wheel here. Darth Vader.
The Dark Lord of the
one.
Sith himself.
Dark Lord of the Sith. He's like the first villain I remember in my life ever being scared of. I feel like watching other stuff like, I don't know, Super Friends cartoons or something. It's like, oh, the Joker or Lex Luthor. But it's just like inherently I know that Superman is going to win, right? I just know. And, you know, I'm not scared of them the way that these cartoons are depicting them. You know, you see him step through that door on the Tantive 5 or what was it?
4.
Tantive 4? 4, yeah. I get confused because there's a V at the end, and I always think about the V as being a 5, so it always takes me a second. You see him step through that door after those stormtroopers, and you're like, you know, the bright white hallway, bright white stormtroopers, rebel leaders with the bright white helmet. Everything's so bright. And then this like just object of sheer darkness comes in, and you know, I mentioned earlier the presence that the Emperor had in Return of the Jedi. It's like for 10 times that for me in Vader in A New Hope. And he just has such a huge presence in those movies, such a huge presence that he, as a character, as a design, as a look, like he is just evident in all Star Wars media. You think Star Wars, you think of Darth Vader, and people who have never seen these movies, you know, he's bled into the culture to the point where people who've never seen these movies might be shocked that he's only in 3 of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as that character, really. Despite, you know, besides 2 minutes at the end of Revenge of the Sith or whatever, but you know, because he's such a strong design, he's such a strong character. We all love him. Everybody loves Darth Vader. He's just the best. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. And there's so much, and especially in the original trilogy, part of the reason I loved him, there's so much mystery around him.
Right.
Like, you don't know what he looks like under that suit. You don't really know how he got that way. Oh my God, he's Luke's dad. What the hell? Like, there's so much that you don't know about him.
It was, I used to rewind it and watch it because it was so intriguing. That part in Empire Strikes Back where they're putting the helmet on.
Yeah.
And you can see the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Just so interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
When he's in his hyperbaric chamber there.
Yeah. So cool.
So we did actually have, just digressing to the people's vote. We did have one write-in. I had to change it to just Darth Vader for the tally purposes, but it was specifically Rogue One Darth Vader because
okay.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Rogue One and Obi-Wan, Matt, the Obi-Wan show. Those are the 2 times that we get to see Vader be terrifying, really.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in, like you said, the boarding scene on the Tantive 4, but beyond that, you're just like intimidated by James Earl Jones's voice and this like this
you're in
character that is encased in a machine.
Yeah, you're intimidated by his presence and the fact that he seems to have no problem killing anybody, people that work for him or whatever.
Younglings.
But you know, you see him in a couple lightsaber duels, but as far as knowing why he's feared across the galaxy, we don't really get that level of ruthlessness until we see Rogue One and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is something I feel like, contrary to that, we do get that level of ruthlessness pretty quickly out of Kylo Ren, which like immediately is like, oh, this guy can mess you up if you cross him. Yeah. And you know, you do get that in Vader, but in a different way. You don't really get like the violence from Vader that you expect until we see Rogue One and Obi-Wan.
One of the scenes that really stuck out to me watching the Kenobi series this time through was the I don't know if I'd call it a duel, his altercation with the third sister.
So amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. He's just toying with her.
Yeah.
You know, he
it's
takes
a
her
cat
saber,
batting a mouse
splits it in
around.
half. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
He
mean,
he doesn't even use his lightsaber, right?
Nope.
He's just like
Right.
dodging hers and then takes one of hers and uses her.
Takes one, snaps it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he's not even like, it's like he's not, he doesn't respect her enough to draw his lightsaber to fight her. You know what I mean? Like he's like disrespecting her.
And that
it's incredible. Yeah.
So stuff like that, you also, for anyone, you know, ultimately we do also delve into comics end of things. The Kieran Gillen and oh god, who did the other run on Vader?
Charles Soule.
Yep, the Soule and Vader, or Soule and Gillen runs on Vader both like have him with that hubris, and like you see the Soule run, you see him finding himself, and the Gillen run, you see him like at peak, like going ham and just like
and that's what you need. Like you said, hubris, like that's what you need, because like that's what they painted Anakin with in the prequels. But you don't really get that hubris from him in the original trilogy, because he's like this more stoic, like, you know, he's
right,
like
he's kind of past
secondary.
that.
And he's secondary to Tarkin in A New Hope, and he's not on his own until Empire. But even then, he's not like, you know,
right, he's Tarkin's
he's more reserved. He's seemingly more reserved.
Yeah.
But what you want is, you know, and then that's why it's just like, well, I don't understand this characterization of Anakin in the prequels, because he doesn't feel like the same character that's going to put that suit on, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, it's cool that they found a way to connect that a little bit more. So,
so that's
any other thoughts about Vader? Yeah. Okay. You want to jump to what the audience said?
Yeah. So that's our top fives.
Listeners think.
We did get a bunch of responses. The final tally for Dark Side Force user from our audience, we had votes for, it's weird, we had 4 people with 1 vote, and everybody else went Vader and Maul.
Wow. Okay.
So we had a vote for Darth Sidious, a vote for Kylo Ren, a vote for Jorah Sabaoth from the original Thrawn trilogy, which is a EU dig.
Disqualified.
Well, there's also a vote for Naga Sadow from, you remember when we were talking when Tales of the Jedi was announced, that there was an old comic Tales of the Jedi?
Yes.
Like this?
Okay.
That is Naga Sadow.
Okay.
And he was a
cool.
badass Force user. Apparently one of our listeners wrote that in. They also had a honorable mention of Asajj Ventress. So beyond that, it came down to Vader and Maul.
Wow. So not really much of a spread.
Nope.
Who came out on top?
Darth Vader edged Maul by 3 votes.
Oh,
so
close call.
Yeah. Came
close
right down to the wire. But yeah.
Nice.
Overall, that was the gist of the people and what their thoughts were.
Nice.
We did have a write-in for like we were talking about, mildly hilarious, because Dooku apparently autocorrects to Doolittle, but with the recent Tales of the Jedi, Count Doolittle storyline is pretty compelling, particularly what would have happened if Qui-Gon had not been killed. So
yeah. That's cool. We also mentioned if we had any honorable mentions, we should fire them off now. I feel like the only honorable mention dark side wise that I would have would be Count Dooku. I think he'd be close. He'd probably be my number 6 if I made a list longer than 5.
Fair enough.
That's what I'd say. Steve, I you have plenty of honorable mentions, I believe.
Yeah, most of them are EU. So I kept all the EU out of my top 5.
Well, you can just rattle them off. We don't have to discuss them. We won't be able to discuss them really. But if you want,
I could just talk to myself about them.
Yeah. No, you can just rattle them off, so you at least feel like you didn't waste your time making a list of honorable mentions. All
right, Exar Kun, Darth Nihilus, Darth Tyrannus, Darth Caedus, Palpatine, Darth Krayt, Mother Telzin, Jorah Sabaoth, Naga Sadow, and Darth Talon.
I knew Mother Talzin.
And Palpatine. And Dooku.
And Palpatine and Dooku and Trinity. Yeah. Nice.
Is she the one that had 12 kids that lived in a shoe?
Yep.
Yes,
that's her.
100%.
Yeah.
Shel Silverstein wrote about her. It was fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. She used so much force she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.